Star Trek, Deep Space Nine, Stowaways. Chapter 3. The Space Falcon apparently was hungry. He had wandered through some dark, twisting back streets, waving away merchants and peddlers until he came out into another plaza, this one a clutter of tables and chairs outside a domed Bajorin restaurant. A pretty Bajorin serving woman came smiling up to him and asked if he cared to eat. "Yes," Dr. Bashir said, returning her smile. "If you can give me an inconspicuous table, one where I will not be noticed." The server looked a little puzzled at that, but she nodded agreeably and led Dr. Bashir to a small oval table with 2 chairs. Then she recited the menu. The doctor ordered savala, a sort of local pasta, and a mesto salad of local vegetables, along with mineral water. The server nodded and hurried away, and the doctor leaned back, his eyes narrowing as he scanned the other patrons of the restaurant.
"He's checking for enemies of the Federation,"
Nog whispered. Jake had to clamp his mouth shut to keep from laughing. The 2 boys had caught sight of the doctor in the crowd and had followed him here with absolutely no difficulty. Now they shared a table across the plaza from Bashir, safely screened from him by a bushy, sharp-leafed plant. Nog was in high spirits, for already he had bought some rings carved from the shell of a native mollusk, and had traded these for some intricate copper bracelets, quite valuable on a planet stripped of most of its metal ores. He was sure he would be able to trade the bracelets for something even more valuable. So far, he had spent almost nothing, and already he anticipated huge profits. He would be in his father's and uncle's good graces for a month. As for Jake, he was getting a little impatient. He lacked Nog's Ferengi enthusiasm for bargaining and trading, and he wanted to see more of Sakilo City. Still, Nog had suggested that it would be good to discover where the doctor would be staying, and Jake realized that he was right. So they took their places at the table and ordered drinks. Red fruit juice for Jake, and a nauseating concoction called a Bajorin fizz for Nog. As they sipped them, they kept the doctor under close observation, and he never once noticed that they were nearby.
"What is he doing now?"
Nog asked as Dr. Bashir finished his meal. Jake had to lean forward a little to see through the fronds of the plant. "It looks like he's talking to his sleeve," he said. Then he laughed. "He's pretending to have a secret subspace radio built into his cuff. He's probably reporting on the meal to counter-espionage control right now."
"Wait a minute," Nog said. "Who's this?"
Jake frowned. A poorly dressed Bajorin had sidled up to Dr. Bashir and had bowed deeply to him. The doctor looked flustered and startled, but after a moment he nodded and indicated the other chair. The deeply tanned Bajorin man, with an anxious glance around, settled into it and leaned across the table. The 2 were soon speaking rapidly to each other, but their voices were too low for Jake to hear. Nog, however, had no trouble at all. His large ears were super-sensitive, and he kept up a commentary on the action.
"This fellow says his name is Takar Antal," Nog reported. "Now he's asking Dr. Bashir if he's a Starfleet officer. Dr. Bashir is saying he knows some officers. Takar says he has some information that might be very valuable to the Federation. Now, Dr. Bashir wants to know what it is. Takar won't say. He thinks it would be better to show the doctor than to tell him. He's asking what the doctor's name is. Dr. Bashir says his name is Cosmo Peregrine. What in the world does that mean?"
With a chuckle, Jake said, "Cosmo comes from an old Earth word meaning space, and a peregrine is a kind of falcon. He's making believe again."
"Shh,"
Nog said.
"Now Mr. Tykar says he has a land tran nearby and that they can go to see this big secret. Dr. Bashir is calling the server over to pay his bill. I guess he's going to go with the Bajorin. Yes, dare to go. Quick, can you settle up here?"
Heaving a sigh, Jake left a Bajorin 1 credit token on the table. It was the smallest he had, but it was easily 4 times too much to pay for a couple of drinks. But Nog was already hurrying away after the retreating Dr. Bashir, and Jake had to hustle to catch up. In and out of colonnades and narrow streets and open plazas went Bashir, side by side with Tykar Antal. At last they came to an open street dominated by a huge ruined building. Jake took a deep breath. The ruin was not in the normal Bajorin style for a good reason. The Cardassians had built it. Once it must have stood as a glowering, dark fortress. Now it was a hollow shell. No doubt the Bajorans had torn the building apart as soon as the hated Cardassians had left the planet. Whatever it had been, administration center, warehouse, or prison, it was just a wreck now. But the other side of the street was a row of simple Bajoran domed shops. Parked along this side was the strange assortment of vehicles, from sun-powered three-wheeled electric cars to rickety wooden-wheeled farm carts drawn by muscular horned animals with wrinkled green hides. Tykar and Bashir stepped into a Lantran, a rectangular open car with caterpillar treads instead of wheels. This one was sand-colored, old, and very battered, splotched all over with rust. For a moment, Bashir sat there with an uncertain expression, as if he were not quite sure about this clunky vehicle and his expedition in it. Then, to Jake's surprise, the old-fashioned alcohol combustion engine coughed to life right away, and the Lantran moved out onto the dusty street. Dr. Bashir grasped the side as the car went jouncing and bouncing along, kicking up a cloud of yellow dust behind it.
"Lost him," Nog said. "Well, any suggestions now?"
Jake thought. Bajorans were a spiritual people, or at least they had been before the Cardassians conquered their planet and enslaved them. Still, a lot of the old religious traditions still existed. "I know where we can pick up his trail again. I'll bet he was going to stay in the hospitality tower," Jake said at last.
"The what?"
asked Nog, who was no student of Bajoran folkways. "It's a sort of hotel," Jake explained. "The monks of the Order of Hispin run them. In most of Bajor cities, travelers can get a room for the night for free."
"For free?"
asked Nog. He shook his large bald head.
"Bajorans are just as crazy as humans,"
he moaned. Then he brightened.
"But if they give away rooms for free, let's go there ourselves. That'll save our money for more important transactions."
They asked for directions. Sure enough, Sakila City had a hospitality tower, and before long they found it. A small garden was out front, and a half-dozen Bajoran monks wearing plain, tan, hooded robes worked there, watering and weeding. One of them led the two boys to the Keeper of Keys, a silver-haired Bajoran monk with a glint of good humor in his gray eyes. "So," the man said, "you two are travelers, eh?" "Yes, sir," said Jake. "I don't suppose you are here for the elevation of the Vedic?" the monk said. Jake blinked. The what?" With a smile, the monk said, "One of the chief leaders of our religion is called Vedic. The new Vedic is to take the position the day after tomorrow. A festival will celebrate Carrick Madal's new eminence." "Is Carrick Madal the new Vedic?" asked Jake. "He is. It is the first time in my life that a man has been elected to the position instead of a woman. Many do not think that a good omen, but Carrick is a gentle man who has nevertheless a strong will. He will be a good voice to have speaking for us on the Vedic Assembly. But you boys care little for our local affairs. How long will you stay?" Jake said, "We'll be here for 3 days. Do you have a room we could use?" "You're fortunate, because as it happens, we do, even with the crowds of the festival coming into the city," said the keeper. He tilted his head. "You are human, are you not?" he asked Jake. "Yes, sir, I am," Jake replied. "My friend is Ferengi." The keeper inclined his head. "May you find good trading," he said to Nog. A surprised Nog murmured his thanks. Jake said, I think another human may come here later. Dr. Julian Bashir from the Deep Space Nine station?" "Ah, yes," said the keeper. "He called from the station yesterday to make sure a room would be available. Are you boys friends of his?" "Yes," Jake said. "We'd like to surprise him. Could you sort of tell us where he'll be, and then not tell him that we're here?" "If he asks, I must tell the truth." "Oh, sure," Jake said, "if he asks. But if he doesn't—" "Then you may surprise him." Jake relaxed. Dr. Bashir had no idea that he and Nog had stowed away aboard the Einstein. It It was very unlikely that he would casually ask the monks if any other humans were at the hospitality tower. They learned that Dr. Bashir was staying in the meditation wing, Fireflower Room. Their own room would be in the same wing, but 2 floors higher, the Spiral Shell Room. They accepted the old-fashioned key and found their way to the room, which proved to be light and airy with 2 windows looking out over another commercial plaza and the monk's garden. 2 simple beds, a table, and 2 chairs were all the furniture. The room also had a small closet and an adjoining bathroom. Nog tossed his backpack on one of the beds.
"I'm off,"
he announced.
"There are profits to be made, and a time of festival can double them. Are you coming?"
Jake left his valise on the other bed. "Lead on," he said. "We'll pick up the Space Falcons trail here this evening, or maybe tomorrow morning." Sakilo City turned out to be a warren of different neighborhoods, some squalid and poor with tumble-down buildings and wretched-looking people, others rich and plush. As the afternoon moved on toward sunset and twilight, the press of people in the many open bazaars grew thicker and thicker. Nog and Jake saw a native asp charmer. Asps were reptilian, sometimes like red and black striped snakes, but with hundreds of small legs. Their heads were long and triangular, with jet black saber fangs that flashed in the light. Evidently, they were poisonous, because when one of them made a sudden movement, the crowd watching fell away with gasps of alarm. The charmer, though, would distract the animals with waves of his hands and low musical chantings. He wore only full scarlet trousers. His chest and arms were deeply tanned, but absolutely bare and glistening with sweat. His deadly creatures would rear the forward third of their bodies up, swaying and staring at their master with cold red eyes, and occasionally they would lunge. But he always pulled his hand away at the last instant, and he was never bitten. In the next plaza were street magicians in billowing green robes who made bear-sized rabbits disappear, and contortionists who could tie their arms and legs in knots, and acrobats who leapt and tumbled with astonishing grace. Fire jugglers made arcs and rainbows of different colored flaming balls, never holding them in their hands long enough to be burned. Toothless old men and women in the black and white robes of soothsayers came cackling toward the boys, offering to foretell their future, and there were beautiful dancing girls who wore bracelets on their wrists and ankles with tiny silver and coral bells so that they danced to the notes of a sweet, wild music they made themselves. And of course there were business people selling all sorts of things. Glow silk kerchiefs, native gemstones, polished rocks with weird fossils visible in them, delicate and intricate jewelry made of bronze, copper, and even the exceedingly rare metals like silver and gold. Nog made a dozen deals, and he looked more pleased after each one. Finally, the sun sank low. Torches began to flare in the streets, and many of the merchants' booths folded down into themselves as the business day ended. Jake and Nog ate dinner at another Bajorin restaurant, and then they made their way back to the hospitality tower. The keeper of keys told them that their friend had not yet appeared, so they went up to their own room. Nog spread out his purchases on the table and gloated over them, but Jake stood at the window, looking down into the darkened plaza. "I'm worried," he said. "What do you suppose has happened to Dr. Bashir?"
"Oh, he's all right,"
Nog said with confidence.
"He's off being told some outrageous lies by that trickster Tykar, and he's enjoying every minute of it. Sometime late tonight, Tykar will tell the good doctor that he will give him the secret password used by the Bajorin rebels for only 50 credits. Dr. Bashir will bargain as shrewdly as an Earth person ever does, and in the end will pay 50 credits. Tykar will give him some nonsense word, and then the Space Falcon will return to his nest for the night, satisfied that he has saved the galaxy."
"It's been hours," Jake said.
"That's the way it always works," responded Nog. "Jake, the way a confidence man operates is like that. The longer the time you take to build up the victim, the bigger the payoff you can expect."
Jake came over to the table and sat across from Nog. "I suppose there is a rule of acquisition that covers such things," he said. All Ferengi memorized the rules of acquisition at an early age. They were the sacred writings of the merchant species.
"Of course," agreed Nog. "The more time they take deciding, the more money they'll spend. It's an elementary principle."
"I wish he would come back," Jake said. The boys got ready for bed not long after that. Nog fell asleep at once and soon was snoring away contentedly, but Jake could not sleep. He kept remembering how seedy and untrustworthy the Bajorin had looked as he sidled up to Dr. Bashir in the restaurant. Lying in the quiet darkness, Jake worried about Dr. Bashir. He hoped that Nog was right and that the doctor was just indulging his love of play acting. He hoped that Tykar Antal was just a harmless con artist, or at least that he intended only financial harm. He hoped that, wherever Dr. Bashir was, he was safe and sound. But somehow he knew in his heart that this was not the case. Something told him that Dr. Bashir was in trouble, that he was in danger, that he might lose more than just money, that, in fact, Dr. Bashir might lose his life. Chapter 4. Jake woke up with a gasp and a start. He sat up in bed, his heart pounding in alarm, but he saw nothing to be alarmed about. Morning light streamed in through the 2 windows. In the other bed, Nog, turned on his side with his back to Jake, slept on peacefully. Yet something had wakened Jake, something that seemed wrong. Lying back against his pillow, Jake frowned and tried to put his finger on just what had happened, or not happened. Finally, he smiled as he realized what had drawn him from sleep. He missed the constant low rumble he always heard aboard Deep Space Nine, the sound of all the station's systems working to keep the 300-odd people aboard safe and secure. At this early hour of the morning on Bajor, the only sounds were the gentle breeze and the occasional chirping of a native bird or insect. Jake lay back and tried to go to sleep again, but the pull of adventure was too strong. At last he said, "Hey, Nog, time to get up, don't you think?" Grumbled Nog. Jake grinned. Nog was always boasting that Ferengi needed less sleep than Earth people, but apparently Ferengi were just as hard to wake up in the morning as Commander Sisko always swore Jake was. Jake grabbed his pillow and slammed it into Nog's head. "Get up!" he yelled, laughing. Nog rolled out of bed, grabbed his own pillow, and threw it at Jake. Jake picked up the fallen weapon, jumped up onto the bed, and took a swing at Nog. Soon the boys had a full-scale pillow fight underway. More like a pillow war, really. Nog laughed and bellowed as he swung and was hit, and Jake was laughing out loud too. Just as Jake drew back for a sweeping roundhouse pillow blow to Nog's head, though, the door opened suddenly. "What is this?" demanded a quiet but firm voice. Jake dropped the pillow, feeling guilty. A young Bajorin monk stood in the doorway, his face stern. "I must ask you to consider that other guests are sleeping," he said. "Sorry," Jake mumbled. Nog bowed deeply. "It is a ritual we go through upon awakening," he said smoothly. "It is our way of greeting a new day." The young monk blinked uncertainly. "A ritual?" He scratched his head. "Oh, well, in that case, But it's so loud." Nog waved away the monk's objection. "We shall conduct the rite more quietly in the future," he said. "Yes," Jake added, and he thought of something else to say. "We apologize for disturbing the serenity of the Tower of Hospitality." "No apology is necessary," the monk said. "And thank you for agreeing to conduct your ritual more quietly." "Think nothing of it," Nog said grandly. As soon as the monk closed the door, both boys burst into quiet laughter. "Quick thinking, Nog," Jake said, resisting the urge to roar out a belly laugh. Nog waved his hand. "Monks are always easy to fool if you tell them whatever you're doing is a ritual," he said. "They have so many rites and rituals themselves, they're ready to believe everybody else. Well, I'm awake now. Shall we go out and eat and see what profit the day will bring?" "Yes," Jake agreed. "I'm hungry." They took turns under the shower. It was a weird experience for Jake, who had only rarely bathed in real water. The showers on Deep Space Nine, like those on the various Starfleet ships he had been on, were sonic, and they cleaned you without wetting you. But if the experience was weird, it was also new, and Jake was in the mood for new things. On the way down, they asked another monk if Dr. Bashir had come in. "No," the man told them. "I am certain he did not. Most strange. We expected him yesterday, and today there will surely be a demand for his room. It is festival time, you know. Jake and Nog exchanged an uneasy glance, but neither of them said anything from the front of the Bajorin. Jake was really worried now. They ate at a peddler's stall, munching some sort of toasty bread spread with sweet, soft fruit, and then they headed back to the plaza near the landing field. When Jake tried to talk about his concern, Nog shrugged it off.
"Nobody will hurt him," Nog said with confidence. "He's a Starfleet officer and a representative of the Federation. Everybody knows the Bajorans are eager to join the Federation."
Not all of them, Jake insisted. He had often heard his father talk to his Bajoran aide, the pretty but intense Major Kira, about the political troubles of Bajor. The Cardassians had been cruel masters, and they had stolen most of Bajor's mineral wealth, but their presence on Bajor had had one good effect. It had unified all the Bajorans, if only in opposition to the Cardassians. Now that the hated Cardassians had abandoned the planet, old rivalries and hatreds had broken out again. The Bajoran Council, the nearest thing the planet had to a real planetary government, did desire membership in the Federation. Plenty of other Bajoran groups and individuals did not. Sometimes Jake's father had said often it seemed there were as many different Bajoran parties and factions as there were Bajorans. All that morning, Jake's uneasiness grew. While Nog was busy trading and bargaining, Jake slipped away to the landing area. The Einstein was still in its berth, along with a few other small ships. A Bajoran worker told Jake that he had not seen Dr. Bashir at all, which was odd because the doctor had said that he would return for his luggage. He never had. Now badly worried, Jake went looking for Nog. He found the Ferengi hotly arguing with a Bajoran stallkeeper over the price of a few copper trinkets. As soon as Nog made his purchase, Jake dragged him away to a more or less quiet corner in the swirl of traffic. "I think Dr. Bashir's in trouble," Jake said. With a wicked grin, Nog said,
"The Space Falcon? Never."
"Come on," Jake said. "I'm not joking now. He hasn't been to the hospitality tower, and he hasn't even taken his luggage off the shuttle. That's not like him."
"He's having a great time somewhere," Nog insisted. "Now, I have my eye on some land pearls in a shop down this street."
Jake grabbed his arm. "Nog, you can't just go on as if nothing's happened. For all we know, that man Dr. Bashir went off with yesterday is some kind of criminal. We don't know anything about Tykar Antal." A girl's voice, sounding surprised and upset, cut in. "Tykar Antal? Did you say something about Tykar?" Jake turned in surprise. Behind him stood the dark-haired Bajoran girl that Nog had noticed yesterday, the one with the jangling copper bracelets. She was carrying a basket of glow-silk scarves, and she was staring at the two boys. "Why?" Jake asked. "Do you know him? Do you know where we can find him?" The girl took a step away from them. "Who are you? What have you to do with Tykar Antal?" Nog put a hand on Jake's chest and pushed him aside.
"Allow me," he said grandly. "Permit me to introduce ourselves. I am Nog the Magnificent, and this is my friend Jake the Grand. We are official representatives of the United Federation of Planets, and we—"
"Oh, stop it, Nog," Jake snapped. He turned to the girl. "We aren't really. I mean, we're from Deep Space Nine, but we're not official representatives of anything. I'm just plain Jake, and this is just Nog." The girl was still looking at them suspiciously. But she said, "My name is Sasana. I'm a Tira Sasana. My father is a Tira Meklet, a glow-silk merchant here in the bazaar." Bajoran family names, Jake remembered, came first, and personal names followed them. Jake tried to guess her age. She was probably a year or so younger than he was, about 13 in Earth years. But it's hard to tell with Bajorans. She could have been a little younger. "Listen, Sasana," Jake said. "We were talking about Tykar Antal because a friend of ours, also from Deep Space Nine, went off with him yesterday in a Lantran, and we haven't seen either of them since." "The scar," Sasana said, her pale green eyes going wide with concern. "The turnaway camp is somewhere in the scar. That's where Tykar must have taken your friend."
"What is the scar?"
Nog asked. "Walk with me. I have to take these scarves to a stall," Sasana said. The two boys walked on either side of her. Jake offered to carry her basket, but she thanked him and said it wasn't necessary. It isn't heavy, and people in the bazaar might think you were trying to steal from me if they saw you take it. Everyone knows my father and me, she said.
What is the scar?
Nog asked again. It's a terrible wasteland, Sasana said. Years ago, the Cardassians carved a huge open pit into the ground there to mine for mineral ores. A strip mine, Jake said. He had read of such things in ecological histories. Back on Earth, such mines had once threatened to ruin large stretches of territory. Fortunately, Earth mining operations gradually came to be friendly to the environment, reseeding and replanting mined lands. The Cardassians had never troubled themselves to do anything of the sort. It is a dread place, Sasana told them. It goes on for a great distance, a desert of ravines and pools of poisonous water. Once it all was rich farmland, but now it is dead. It is the scar. They reached the merchant's stall where Sasana had to make her delivery. The Bajorin woman inside took the basket, pulled scarves from it, and held them up. The bright colors shimmered in the morning light. Then the woman stepped into a small enclosure and shut the door.
What's she doing?
Nog asked. True glow silk will give its own light in the dark, Sasana explained. She is making sure that the scarves will really glow. Nog looked greedy and interested.
Rare are these scarves?
Oh, yes. They used to be very common, but the creatures that spin the silk were almost made extinct when the Cardassians ruined the islands where they lived. Now only a few farmers out on the islands raise them. None are left in the wild. Nog said.
I would like to discuss these scarves with you.
Just then the stall-keeper came out smiling. She signed a receipt the Sasana offered her, and then the girl led the boys away. Now that she was not carrying her basket, they moved more quickly through the crowd. Why is Tykar Antal so dangerous? Jake asked her. She gave him a frightened glance. I did not say that. No, Jake agreed. But you look scared every time someone mentions his name. Who is he, and why is he so horrifying? Tykar Antal is a general, she said. When the Cardassians ruled, he was one of the great leaders of the resistance. But he is a bitter man. You may know that the Bajorin people are very religious. They are different sects, of course, but all of them are devoted to exploring the ways of the spirit, and all of them revere the Kaiopaka and her teachings, all but Tykar Antal and his turnaways.
And who are they? Nog asked. And about the glow silk?
They say Tykar was the first turnaway, Sasana replied. He fought the Cardassians for years. They killed his whole family because of that. His father and mother, all his sisters and brothers, and his wife and children. The Cardassians tortured them horribly and then killed them, and Tykar lost his faith. He said if religion could not help him, if spiritual powers could not even protect his innocent wife and children, then he would turn away from them. And he did. His followers are also unbelievers. But the war with the Cardassians is over, objected Jake. So why is Tykar still someone who scares you? He frightens everyone, Sasana exclaimed. He does not want Bajor to join the Federation. None of his band do. And they all hate the Council because the Council follows the way of the Kai and the teachings of the priests. In other cities on Bajor, there have been incidents, bombings, kidnappings, acts of terrorism. No one knows who is responsible, but all suspect the turnaways. Around here, Tykar is tolerated because he protested the people of the city during the Cardassian. He protected the people of the city during the Cardassian withdrawal, and because his army still exists. It is out there in the wilderness of the Scar, and no one knows how large it is. But everyone is afraid of the turnaways and of their power, especially now. Now? Asked Jake. Because of that, Sasana said, nodding. They had paused at an intersection. A crowd had gathered there, and they were murmuring in low voices. Passing by in the street was a procession of Bajoran monks in brightly scarlet robes, ringing handbells and chanting a prayer. In the center of the throng walked a tall, balding man of 50. His robe was silvery gray, and he lifted a hand in blessing as he passed by. Jake thought he looked like a kindly grandfather, a grandfather who carried a world of worry on his shoulders.
Look out!
Nog suddenly shouted. A young Bajorin had pushed through the crowd. He leapt out into the street, shoving his way through the startled band of monks. Jake gasped as he saw the young man raise a long, wickedly curved knife high, ready to strike at the old man. And then the monks had closed in around him. They pushed him to the street as the crowd jostled this way and that, some trying to get out of the way, some trying to get a better view. One of the younger monks stood, his robe torn, his shoulder bloody. He held in his hand the curved knife. Others held the assassin down. In a soft voice, the old man in the silvery robe said, "Let him go. I forgive him."
"You are not a Vedic yet,"
shouted the assassin. "No," agreed the old man, who had to be Carrick Madel, the man whom the keeper of the keys had spoken about yesterday. "But I shall be."
"Despite the wishes of true Bajorans such as I," the young man cried.
"Not despite you," said Carrick. "Because of such as you, let him go." The young man, disarmed, pushed away through the crowd, going right past Jake, Sasana, and Nog. Jake shivered a little to think how close he had come to witnessing a murder. The procession reformed and continued, with 2 monks helping the injured one along. "Do they hate the new Vedics so much?" Jake asked. "Some do," Sasana murmured. "The Turnaways most of all, because Sarek Meadle favors our joining the Federation." They crossed the street and made their way through the crowds of Bajorans, many of them loudly talking about the assassination attempt. Jake found that they did not travel as fast as news or rumors, for lots of the stories he overheard had multiplied the one attacker into a band of men armed with phasers and disruptors. At last, Sasana stopped in front of a domed building. "This is my father's place of business," she said. "Listen, your friend is in great danger if he has gone with Tykar. He may be a prisoner of the Turnaways. They despise the Federation, and they will do anything to keep Bajor from joining it. You must go to the authorities at once. Tell them that—" "We can't," Jake said. We're kind of illegal ourselves." She blinked at them. "You are from Deep Space Nine," she said. "The local constables have no power over you."
"Jake,"
Nog said in a warning voice.
"maybe we'd better just—"
"We stowed away," Jake said. "We'll be in trouble. And I'm not sure that anything happened to the doctor anyway. He went along with Tykar willingly, and he looked fine then. Maybe you could help us check this out." "You don't know what you're asking," Sasana asked. "The Turnaways wouldn't hesitate to kill us all."
"Oh, well, we can go back to the shuttle and call for help," Nog said. "Sorry to have bothered you. Bye now."
"Nog," Jake said, stepping in front of his friend to keep him from strolling away. "We can't call Deep Space Nine. What if Dr. Bashir is all right? Anything might have happened. He might even have come across some medical emergency that's keeping him away. If nothing's wrong with him, we'll look like fools. Anyway, remember that Dad isn't on the station right now. Do you want Major Kira to punish us?" Nog swallowed hard. Major Kira, too, had been a Bajoran freedom fighter. She had very little use for pranks.
"All right,"
he said reluctantly.
"We'll see what we can do. But we will need some help."
"Sasana?" asked Jake. "I know we have no business asking you, but could you tell us the way?" She shook her head. "You'll never get there," she said. She gave her father's business place a longing look, and she took a deep breath. "Oh, very well. My mother and father fought against the Cardassians. I suppose their daughter can fight against the Turnaways. Come with me. I have a way to get us to the Scar." "Thank you," Jake said. She glared at him, anger flashing in her green eyes. "Just wait," she snapped. "After we come back, then you can thank me. If we come back alive, that is."